Going back to when we first got to DC, it was something we had to do. We didn't have stars in house. We weren't coming off a top draft pick. And even if we were like, all right, we got to make these players we have better. I think it becomes a big selling point with players around the league. I always say we want to feel like any player who comes through our doors, whether they're here for a week of training camp or they're here.
But I think they played one game without Angel. I know this probably sounds a little silly, but how different or how did they look sans Angel?
Maybe a little tough to say just because they had been without Kennedy for a while, and then they had a brief moment where they had them both back or Kennedy back, and then they lost Angel. So it's just different. I mean, obviously we know about what she's done rebounding the ball this year. Izzy Harrison starting instead, and Izzy's a really skilled, good player. She brings something different to the table, kind of a different look. So, we didn't play Kennedy last time. So that's already different. So, kind of like we've done in these scenarios, you just got to play the team that's in front of you. Maybe the floor will be opened up a little bit. I don't think it'll be radically different. You still got to rebound, you still got to guard the paint. So we're ready for who we have to play.
I was going to say it didn't look like dramatic scheme changes. I'm assuming.
No, Kennedy Carter with the ball in her hands
Well,
looks
yes.
a lot different. Like that's but otherwise, not particularly.
Gotcha. Peter, I think you just might have touched on it just a little bit, but things that are kind of in the forefront of your mind that you got to take care of today.
Take care of the basketball, close down gaps, not let them see easy driving lanes, and then try to rebound the hell out of the ball because you have to do that against them. And I thought that was the difference for us down the stretch last time here was getting some second shots late in the game as part of our run to get the win. So, I think we've been better in each of those categories recently, and we just got to stick with it.
And last one for me, speaking of being better in categories, you guys have been pretty good on the road recently. Is there anything that stands out like, hey, we've been doing X better, particularly on the road? Or is that just kind of the general, you guys have been playing better in general?
We've been playing better in general. I mean, our last two home games are Connecticut and Minnesota. Like those aren't easy games at home, road, wherever. So, I think we played pretty well in the Minnesota game with the exception of a couple areas. I think we've gone into these games with the right approach and mindset. We've come out in attack mode. On the road that you need kind of each other defensively. Like you're not going to get that extra boost from the crowd. So you got to be really connected and talking. And I think we've had that. I think we've just had, everybody who's come in the game has been ready to go and brought something to the table. I don't know. Sometimes when you win a couple and you get it rolling, it just becomes a thing.
Coach, I was just reading an article that Jen Hatfield wrote about how you guys approach player development. And I could tell that you guys put a lot of thought and care into it, and it almost kind of felt like a curriculum that you guys have. And I was curious what aspects, like the teaching aspect of coaching, you enjoyed.
That's a great question. It's funny you describe it like a curriculum because I think we're always thinking of how to improve it and change it and tweak it. We probably think about it a lot more in some ways, even going down the road than I'll share publicly. We kind of always want to be on the edge of that area. Like we always want to be trying to find a new edge, trying to find a different, better way to do something. I think we just put a lot of thought and time into it. We've going back to when we first got to DC, it was something we had to do. We didn't have stars in house. We weren't coming off a top draft pick. And even if we were like, all right, we got to make these players we have better. I think it becomes a big selling point with players around the league. I always say we want to feel like any player who comes through our doors, whether they're here for a week of training camp or they're here for 7 years, 9 years, whatever it is, that they feel like they got better every year they were with us, all the time they were with us. So, we can be obnoxious about it with players. Like we're never going to let them settle for not getting better. We have Sefu Bernard as our director of player development, who I'd put up against, anybody in the world in that position. He's phenomenal and he's corrupted the way I think in a really good way. And, I learn a lot from him every day. And, when I got the job, I pitched that as a kind of a core, the heart of what we do. Because I think it lets you open up a lot of other avenues as well.
And then in warm-ups, I noticed you kind of getting in there with the players.
Got to hit somebody. It's contact sport.
I don't always see coaches do that, and I was wondering if staying connected to the playing aspect of basketball is part of what you like about coaching.
I do. I don't get to do it as much as I'd like anymore. Fortunately, we have really good practice squads, so they don't need my services in that regard. You know, if Kareem sees me, I try to get a couple players after practice as part of my normal routine, and I think it's good. I think it just helps your relationship with the players. They feel like you're in it with them. You know, it's fun to foul Aaliyah pregame every night and strip from her and talk some shit. And me and Latoya is just like, I don't know, becomes part of the routine.
But do you have time to hoop in your free time?
No, sadly. Maybe a little in the off season. Not hoop in shape either. I do a lot of hooping at home on a 3-foot hoop.
Yes.
All right, we can move on to Zoom. Jen?
Hey Eric, what can you tell us about Kira? You know, played 10 minutes the other night, out tonight, obviously. What's the latest on her and what's kind of the prognosis going forward?
Yeah, I told Kareem this morning, you know, she didn't have pain in the ankle going into the game or after the game the other night. She just, you know, didn't feel when she was playing, she just didn't feel like she had kind of the strength and the pop that she would like. You know, part of it to be expected first game back after being out for a few, but you know, just didn't feel like she could do the things she wanted to do on the court. So that's where it is.
Do you have any idea of whether, you know, she could play again this season or whether you're gonna have to shut her down?
No, if I have more concrete info on that, I'll be sure to share.
Gotcha. And I know you said you haven't been talking with the team about the playoffs at all, but has there been anything said about kind of the importance of this week with Chicago and Atlanta on the schedule?
I think you guys have to start chipping into a collective fund every time you tell me that I don't talk about the playoffs. You're all good for it at least once every couple of days. No, like I've said all along, the players know. I don't have to explain to them the significance of the week. We you know, I touched on it briefly yesterday of like all we get to control at the time yesterday was yesterday's practice, and we wanted to leave yesterday's practice feeling like we got better. We've taken them one at a time. That's been the approach that's worked for us. I have no reason to change that.
Last one for me, about Shatori, you know, with how she's playing off the bench and also, you know, being that leader that you've talked about for the bench group. How have you seen that help some of the other reserves?
Jen, I feel like this was coordinated. You teed me up. So I don't see why Shatori shouldn't be 6th player of the year. I think she is, you know, in my opinion, what that award is designed to recognize. She has hit those markers. You know, not only has she, I don't think there's one player who has, you know, played a high volume of bench games, has scored more than her, but I think it's also the part that you touched on, the leadership of that bench group. We have the highest scoring bench in the league. She has mentally, emotionally taken that challenge of, you know, trying to lead that group. That group has been ever changing, and she has been the steady constant of it. I think it would be a great testament to the year she's had and you know, not just the year, but the career she's had and the growth she's shown. If she would be recognized in that way, I think she has a legit, you know, I don't think this is homerism on my part. I think she has a legit candidacy for that award. You know, there's other players that have good numbers coming off the bench, but have maybe also started a lot of games or haven't played as many games. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and belittle other players because there's plenty of deserving winners, but I think that her body of work coming off the bench all year and anchoring that group, you know, I hope she gets recognized by the voters.
Great, thank you.
All right, that concludes media. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, guys.
We'll see everyone.